Hello everyone to this live stream from Music Pool Berlin. My name is Andrea Götzke, and I'm happy to introduce just briefly our first live streamed community evening for Music Pool. Before, we've been doing mostly this kind of Zoom call meetings where people can talk to each other, but we wanted to try this time a format that can also be watched later, and I'm happy to introduce a proper live stream today. We're in the club Fitzroy, underneath the S-Bahn, next to the Spree, in a proper club space. And before we start, I would briefly, for those of you who don't know Music Pool Berlin, it's a project that organizes consultations, workshops, coachings, as well as discussions and meetups for musicians in Berlin on all kinds of topics that deal with the non-creative side of working as a musician and being a musician, like booking or publishing, marketing, social security, all these kind of topics. And if you want to know what's going on at Music Pool, I would recommend that you sign up to our newsletter. I'm going to post the link to that into the chat and the YouTube description, so you can easily find that. And I'm happy to introduce Folly Ghost, who is our guest curator for this session, and he has also come up with the topic of nightlife and safer spaces, especially in this time where we have all moved our events online. Our gatherings around music take place online, and also in I think we are also going to talk about some experiences of the past summer with doing events with smaller amounts of people and so on. But I would leave it to Folly Ghost to introduce the topic in detail. Folly Ghost is a Brazilian DJ and curator living in Berlin. Also an instigator of social and political debates, particularly how they relate to club culture. What else did I want to mention before? We're streaming this through Facebook and YouTube, and we have a chat, and we would really like to hear from you. At the end of the discussion, we will take questions and comments from the audience, and as it feels a bit lonely here, would be great to hear from you. Just let us know that you're there, who you are. If you have any comments or question, would be great. And I would like to invite the panel. Folly Ghost will introduce all the panelists and the topic. And enjoy.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Andrea, for the invitation. Thank you, Fitzroy. Thank you for every institution that's part of this. So the reason why I chose this specific topic for tonight is because I feel like there's a lot that has been said already about and written about nightlife and safety/awareness when we didn't have a pandemic going on. And a lot of things have shifted when the lighter restrictions were going on. We had a lot of new formats of events, and because of that, I don't think the protocols or all the material that was written quite fits into those new emerging formats. And this is why I decided to propose this topic, so we can kickstart a conversation and have a debate about what does safety means in this new reality that we find ourselves in. So I would like to invite our guests to come over. Thank you so much for being here. I'm gonna let you folks introduce yourselves. My name is Max Folly, also known as Folly Ghost. As Andrea stated, my pronouns are he, him, and when you do your introductions, I would ask you to please also say your pronouns.
Hi everyone, my name's Camille. I use they, them, or she, her pronouns. I'm an artist, writer, somatic educator, and event producer working on the intersections of wellness, drug policy, and transformative justice. I also play ritual-based music as DJ Afro and Kali. Thanks for having me.
Hi, I'm Isabella. I'm she, her. I'm a producer, have been producing for over 10 years, and that's my vice and my love. I'm originally from Brazil, have been in Berlin for 3 years, and since then I've been producing DICE Festival, also Empower Festival for the last 3 years. And yeah, just trying to make sure that everybody has a very nice and cool place to showcase their art. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Katharine. I use she, her pronouns at the moment. I'm working for the Club Commission. I'm taking care of the department Awareness and Diversity. So basically, I'm guiding through all the different projects the Club Commission is doing on this topic. And as well, I'm part of the core team of United We Stream. So since March, since the first lockdown this year, I'm taking care of awareness measures in this project, diversity measures, and as well, yeah, a lot of community work.
All right, thank you so much. So I'm gonna start with the questions. What does safety in clubs or events mean to you?
Silence.
I'm happy to start, give it a go. I think for me it's important to be clear that I don't think safety can ever be guaranteed anywhere all the time. But I do think that events and spaces can create containers for accountability so that if and when harm takes place, there can be kind of measures and steps taken that people who enter the space know about in advance so they can decide and consent to be there and feel, okay, I can express myself and be in this space, and if something happens, I know where I can go to kind of address the situation. So I think for me, when I go to a space and look for safety, I'm looking for that. Does the club or the space have a kind of awareness team and a policy? Do they have a stance about anti-racism or inclusion for LGBT folks or accessible spaces for disabled folks? And yeah, how do they kind of follow up when things go wrong? And is that kind of held with care and compassion, or is it being done as a kind of tokenistic thing? So those are the kind of components I'm thinking about when I think about safety in spaces.
Yeah, I also find it very weird and hard to answer the question, because even if we try our best to make it as a safe place, you cannot guarantee who's coming and how their mindset is. You cannot guarantee the way to the club or to the party is safe enough. So how can you actually make it safe so the person is willing to leave their house, come to this place, and feel free and feel good enough so they can have a good time, because that's, after all, that's what we're all after. I feel accountability is key on this situation. And also before the pandemic, for me, it was very much like this: get inside a place and understanding, okay, if something happens, I know I have people whom I can talk to or where to look for this. But now, as we were discussing before, just coming to this place, for me now, it's like a matter of, oh, okay, is there hand sanitizer? Is there soap? Is there an emergency exit? How can I go? Also, the physicability of the place for me now plays such a huge factor in what safety means for me. And that's, I don't know, it's something that I haven't thought about before, but now it's also in the back of my mind. And how can that be safe for others as well? Not just accessibility, but making sure that everybody has these tools and being sure that all is there, So yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with both of you that there's no safe space. It's just we can work on safer spaces. And what I think about when I think about safety in nightlife is that it's a very, very complex thing, and that it's a huge process, and it will always be a process, and it will always be that complex because it's up to very individual experiences, and our whole society is so complex. So we will never have a 100% inclusive and safe space for each of us, but we can just be from the beginning, and that's for me a club that tries to be a safer space, be aware that actually we are all not free from discrimination or being discriminative people and institutions, and that we constantly have to work on measures and systems and prevention when it comes to harmful incidents. And that's safety in nightlife for me.
But just to add, I also feel like people should be paying more attention as in producers and clubs.
Yeah.
Obviously, we will never have the most safer spaces of the whole earth, but if we at least tell people you are being heard, if anything happens,
100%.
Come to us,
100%. And I think when I say it's complex, I see a club or a nightlife institution as a very complex thing. It's not just the dance floor, it's not just the door policy, it's not just the programming, it's all together that has to have these certain values and agree on them, and then take action towards them.
I'm pretty much on board with your view on there is no absolute safe space. This is actually one of the reasons why the title is Nightlife and Safer Spaces. So what has been your overall experience working and or dealing with awareness teams before the pandemic?
So I've had the pleasure of writing a few kind of safer space policies myself. One of the projects I used to produce, still do produce, though it didn't happen this summer, is Shambhala, the Sanctuary at Shambhala Festival in the UK, which is a kind of LGBTQIA plus clubhouse where we do kind of healing arts and harm reduction and have parties in the evening. And so, it was an interesting challenge, kind of designing a safer space policy that would specifically center QT-BPOC in a predominantly white festival space. And it was kind of a beautiful process in a way to be really clear with the festival organizers and saying, this is what we want to do. This isn't just, we want to have an LGBT clubhouse. We want to have one that's really centering, having it be a kind of racism-free space and really elevating the art and the creativity and needs of QT-BPOC in particular. And the festival were like, okay, go for it. But obviously, you need to kind of let anyone in. So design a policy that's going to work for you. And so we chose to have kind of guardians that would be on shift during the day and the night. We had our code of conduct on the front of the venue and also inside. And we had very clear kind of decorations for the awareness team, the guardians, so that they were kind of at nighttime wearing fairy lights and usually some kind of sash that people could find them. And during the day, they mostly were like kind of giving tea and empathy. If people came in and had questions about resources or harm reduction materials, they were mostly guiding people towards that. But at nighttime, it was a bit more active because sometimes people are coming into the space and they don't know what it is. They don't exactly know who it's for. And so there was a lot of kind of reminding people or just saying, be aware, this is the container we're creating. And then occasionally when there were instances of kind of unwanted touch or harassment, we had a very particular staging process of first checking in with the person and then, if they weren't able to be accountable and reflect on what they had done, depending on the needs of the person harmed as well, then they would either be asked to leave or there would be a kind of, escalation of the process. So it definitely worked pretty well, but that is definitely in more of a festival context, which has particular challenges and gains. But I think it's really useful to kind of design these and also, as you were saying before, make sure that everyone who's involved in the space understands why, understands what the process is, and also to have a policy for within the actual production team crew as well. Because often we create these things thinking about, it's just the people who are coming in. But actually we have to kind of have a system for dealing with conflict internally as well, because it happens. I think the more we acknowledge that it's not just some bad people who do things, but that we're all capable of, being harmed and also harming, then hopefully we can have more kind of community-based efforts to just deal with it as a daily thing. And it wouldn't be such a catastrophe when something happens, because we're like, oh yeah, we have systems for this. So, yeah.
Well, I will say that I only started taking it as serious as it should after I moved to Berlin. We are from the same country, you know exactly. There's no policy on creating safer spaces in Brazil, unfortunately. It was always something that was in the back of my mind, specifically because I'm a woman, so I know exactly what it is that I suffer when I enter places. And I talk a lot with people. I try to make it, or always try to make sure that everybody, at least from the team and people who are working with us, were comfortable and knew that if anything would happen, they should come to us and we would listen. We would not doubt that word, because also I feel sometimes people feel like, oh, if I take it to someone, they would doubt that I actually suffered. And by all means, that's not what I wanted. But this idea of actually developing some policy towards safer space is something that only occurred to me in Germany, and I was in awe that, oh my God, yes, boom, obviously, it's something that we should be talking about, and it's something that should be in the very core of any kind of project. You will have people that might be triggered or might harm or might be harmed, and we have to know how to deal with those things. The first experience I had was at Empower a few years ago, and for me it was such an awesome lesson to learn, to help them develop. And that first Empower was much more in the listening role than in the role of giving opinions or something, because I had so much to learn, and then to understand how to actually make it put into action, what to do. And then also we had a specific team divided in shifts. We had the fairy lights. We have a specific color for awareness. We had all the policies in every and each corner, and bathroom doors on the entrance and everything. And then when it came to dice, it was the same thing. And it was something that it was already very much within the back of my mind. So it was just something in a very much in a constant state of progression, I would say. So for me nowadays, it's so much easier to just sit with someone, but also I'm not the only one writing them, because you have to listen to all different people and take into consideration different kinds of experiences and how different people can suffer and also perpetuate those kinds of experiences or events or something. But I will say that I also produce a few Brazilian funk parties, and dealing with Brazilians, specifically cis Brazilians, is a different thing. And then you have to be much more, because we're not so used to these policies, you have to be a little more, I don't want to say aggressive, but you have to be a little bit
assertive.
Yeah, assertive, thank you. And then what I would do is pretty much I would put on the very big and very front of the party. Like if you do any of those things, or if you think any of those things are okay, this is not the place for you, and you're more than welcome to not come. We don't want you here. We don't want your money. We're trying to create a place that people feel like they can enjoy themselves, and if you're gonna prevent them from doing this, just go away. It's still a process, because people don't understand it so well, but I feel like the fact that we have, or at least I was very fortunate to have a security team that understands it very well. We have awareness team that understands it very well. We as a production, we are very tight on what it is and what it is not that should be done, how to process and how to welcome those conversations. It's much easier, I'd say. It's never easy, but it's easier, and I feel like people, they feel like they can. So if anything happens, they will come to us, even if it's not to the whole group, but they will come to one of us. Oh, this and this happened. I don't feel nice, or any situation that might happen. But yeah, I mean, it's unfortunately a try and error thing. You try, and then if it's awesome, if it works, you take it to the next time. And if you make a catastrophic mistake and you're like, oops, nope, let's try again. So yeah, that's how it's been.
again, I totally agree with all of you. I want to follow Camille's thoughts that I have the same experience with awareness teams, awareness concepts. They don't work at all when they don't apply to the team who is actually doing, for example, the festival or the club. But that's like not rarely I had this experience that we are working on a massive process and concept, but in the end, it would just apply to the guests. But what happens when you have an artist you booked and he's playing and he's actually intimidating a woman or another person, and you see that and you want to act? And then you realize, okay, the hierarchy above you is actually not taking any action, but you need their action because that's where the power is. And that's, an experience I made, kind of often, and it really frustrated me. And it comes as well with, okay, we call ourselves aware and we write it everywhere, but in the end, it ends up just to be an image and a trend that is being used because, awareness, that's a thing. You kind of have to be in the zeitgeist, and it's really hard to navigate through this, like where really people respect your work and you have the same values, and where they just attempt to and are actually using it for their effort. And it becomes more and more difficult because, thanks God, the society, especially people under oppression, get more and more aware of their oppression and the oppressor. So that's why we need all, a festival who's not aware needs an awareness concept because the society is asking for this. But yeah, in the end, it's really hard to figure out who's taking it seriously and who not. And yeah, that's actually something I would like to discuss as well. And that's really my experience I made before the pandemic.
I would love to just add something in relation to that, and just thinking about, how we as producers and curators can also change our booking processes. And maybe that's something we need to do as well, of thinking, okay, as a community, how do we get really clear on who's actually down to kind of try something a bit new, to really be more aware and bring that. And thinking about how do we do that in terms of terms and conditions, and really, holding people to a standard in advance so they consent to that. Because I totally hear you that there may be all these things in place, but if it's not at that kind of earlier stage, then it's kind of difficult to implement. Yeah.
And also, I feel sometimes not only the public, but also the artists see the production as this entity that they can do whatever with. True. And you are there, you're working, you're trying your hardest, putting so many hours and putting so much effort. And then these kinds of things already happened to me a few times. And you're in this position of, actually, I'm the one that people come to with problems from the awareness, but I have no one I can talk to about it. And at the same time, you are the artist.
Yeah.
Then what? What am I gonna do?
So how was it for you in relation to safety and awareness teams in events that you either worked or attended when we had already during the pandemic with lighter restrictions for the in-presence events or just online events? How was your experience?
I guess I can speak to one that's not necessarily, well, it was from a collective that was sort of doing nightlife events. It's a collective that's UK-based, though they did do an event in Berlin, I think, last year, called Misery. And what's really nice about Misery is they kind of have a bit more of an awareness that people, have different mental health experiences going on, and maybe are experiencing depression, and maybe are sober, and, maybe want to have different kind of experiences in a nightlife context that aren't super normative. And they were doing a lot of online events, and I think did a lovely job of creating kind of different support people in different Zoom rooms when they were having their online session. So if people did get triggered, there was someone specific they could go to in a different room. So they didn't have to either just leave the event if they were really upset. And the facilitators could concentrate on doing their facilitation, but they knew there was a kind of support process. And I thought that worked really well. And they've done a lovely job of kind of, providing kind of online community for predominantly QT BIPOC during the pandemic. So, I really like what they're doing.
Yeah, well, we managed to do the festival in real life experience. It was amazing. It was amazing. We didn't have such, because of all the measures, we only had it for 50 people per night, which is nothing. So our team also had to be super small. And then basically everybody was also awareness. And we had this very, I want to say, easy policies towards it. It was very much, well, anything that feels wrong, anything that someone comes and tells you this experience, even if it's not specifically towards one person, but this experience didn't make me feel good or made me feel X, Y, and Z, let's talk about it because we can improve. And such a small place, or not a place, but such a small crowd that we can actually address those situations right here. And I mean, the only problems we had was people wanting to be very close, and we couldn't because of COVID, but still then we would talk to people and they would be like, yeah, no, of course. And then it would just go their own separate ways. But we didn't have any kind of major incident or something. Just like sometimes people drink a little bit too much and they talk a little bit, something that they shouldn't, or they are in a place where they shouldn't be. But other than that, it was actually a very peaceful situation. But because I feel the people that went to DICE this year are the people that really want to be there for the experience of the festival and not for just hanging, you know? And that changes so much the environment. It changes. You can feel the room is different because it's people that want to be there. They want to enjoy. They want to be with their peers. They want to, I don't know, soak in anything that's been said or being played. It's completely different from people that just are there. It's just a Saturday night, you know? So, yeah.
I did very different formats during the pandemic. I mean, we started United We Stream. That's a whole big story, what went on there. And when you are talking about lighter restrictions and what was possible in the summer, with the Club Commission, we were able to do the Tag der Clubkultur, the Day of Club Culture. And this is actually one of my favorite experiments, talking about awareness and diversity and how we deal with hygiene and stuff like this. So maybe I just make a short summary for the people who couldn't experience this. We actually got the possibility from the Cultural Senate as a Club Commission to award over 40 clubs and collectives with 10,000 euros each. And then we would actually have a massive event going on October 3rd. And each of these club or collectives could present themselves with their unique program. And for me, this was really kind of how we should allocate resources and activate community, and how this could work out in the future. So we were actually able, and the privileged part, to give away money, and then we hired a jury. And I guess this is really new in Germany. From 5 people, 4 people were actually queer femmes of color. And they curated the program, and you could really see how this is changing the whole thing, how they choose different people. And so instantly, you just don't have straight, white, male people. It's super diverse, and you see really new collectives and spaces on stage. I think, wow, how could I never see them? And suddenly people felt empowered, and this really sent a message. And at the same time, we gave a lot of responsibility to them, because then on October 3rd, and this was actually already when the infection numbers were rising again, and we were like, oh, we don't know if we still can do this. I mean, mainly this is happening open air, and when something is happening inside, people could just sit and watch something, but still it was kind of crazy, but we really wanted to do it, and we had the Cultural Senate in our back, because we took all these hygiene measures and protocols, and we had meetings, we guided people. And in the end, each of these spaces and collectives created their own hygiene rules, and they were super responsible. And the only problem we had in the end were like 2 or 3 spaces where people stand in a row, too many of them, but then after a few minutes we could already solve this problem. And it was really amazing to see how people deal with it in a responsible way when you give them the trust, and when they know they are a place that has to be responsible because people are gathering there and coming together. And for me, this was really a good practice example how we could deal with this and think in other formats, because the people got really creative, and we had so many different, not rave, but rave events. It was so cool. I mean, Max, you were curating one, because No Shade, you are part of, got awarded as well, which is so cool to see you
Yeah,
here
definitely.
again.
Big up to Club Commission and Tag de Club Cultura for organizing this. Yes, I had the pleasure of being one of the organizers through a collective that I'm no longer affiliated, which is No Shade. And it was really great. I felt like it was... given the restrictions that we had at the time and the numbers of infections that we had at the time, was really it was something that was doable and possible. However, I did think about the possibilities that we could be open to now that we're experiencing a crisis. I think it gives us an opportunity to rethink the ways that we've been doing things. And I wondered how, and Tag de Club Cultura specifically was rewarding the clubs and collectives that were already instigating events in Berlin. And I know that this would be an enormous amount of work, extra amount of work, but I wonder how it would be if, instead of choosing the people who were already have big platforms and already have are very well established in the scene, how would it be if you opened it up for other collectives, other curators, other spaces that aren't so much hypered up, you know? So you could give an opportunity for those who are not in the spotlight so much.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, from my point of view, there are already collectives who have not this huge platform and who are very in a niche when we look on club culture in Berlin. And of course, you can open it always more. And in this time, Tag der Clubkultur was as well an emergency reaction on, okay, how can we actually save physical club spaces and community spaces that are already built up? Because when we don't save them and we don't take care, we lose them, and over 50% will be gone. And then actually what kind of city we are looking at, because Berlin and what all of us here enjoy is the diversity and the massive offer we have on very different spaces and spaces for different backgrounds and identities. And so that's why it was focused on spaces that were already there, and that was kind of the agreement we had with the Cultural Senate. And the focus was not on, okay, what's just popping up or might pop up. That's as well as important as this, but that was just not the focus. So we were focusing on, constructions that were already active for over a year. So the year was, which is still pretty new. I mean, there were collectors who were just doing something for over a year now. So for me, this was still new. But yeah, I totally get your point, and yeah.
So I understand that DICE was very successful on reducing the awareness team on account of having a regular audience that already has a good understanding of the policies. I also understand that you have a very cohesive team that have been working along together for a long time. So that builds up a structure that's easier to just reduce staff. But without those elements, would you think it's realistic to expect that events will be safer just because they have less attendees?
No. No, we're still the same people. We still have the same mindset, you know? It's a huge no, unfortunately. And it pains me to say, but no. If we don't change, I feel like, one, if we as an event, if we don't communicate very well what it is that we are willing to offer to the public, what are the guidelines for this public? Like, yes, please come enjoy with us, but be aware that this and this and this will not be accepted. And I mean, it can, of course, scare away a huge crowd that can be transformed into a very good revenue, but at the same time, you're just treasuring the quality of your event and the people that you actually want to talk to, the people that you actually want to reach out to. And then you just have to understand what's more important, money or your crowd. I really want to believe that you will go for your crowd. And then if you don't do that, and also if you don't have very clear policies for everybody, and when I mean everybody, I mean everybody, you know, like people should be able to go to the bar and communicate to someone at the bar that they have been harassed or anything, and that the bar person will guide them then to someone, oh, I cannot deal with your problem, but please come with me. And, you know, if you don't have it very well spread out through your whole structure as an event, the problem is already there. If we as organizers, if we don't have that in the back of our minds, again, we won't change anything. And then that has to go to the people that are coming. They have to understand where they're going to, who are the people that are going to be there having fun with them. And also, let's be honest, let's be less selfish, you know? Let's understand that other people might have different ways of enjoying themselves, and let's allow them to do it. If it's not hurting me, if I'm not hurting you, let's all just have a very good time. And, you know, let the organizers have a very good night at their jobs as well, which is important. But to summarize, it's a big no.
Do you think that the pandemic can potentially change the way that we think about safety beyond hygiene protocols? You don't necessarily need to answer first. You can, whoever has something to say can just. But if you want to, you're welcome.
I can say what I think about it. Like, UMINEF is actually significantly changing our view on how we gather, or like, I'm not sure if I understood the question right.
I guess, is there something that we can take from the dynamics that we have just experienced into rethinking the way that we write the policies or the way that we put them in practice or whatsoever? And the answer can also be no, it doesn't change anything.
I mean, what I take from this project I was involved in is that now, as a lot of things are not possible anymore, there is a very new appreciation of the things we don't have anymore. And I think especially for the culture and event, and especially club culture sector, which got really like blown up, and everything was just higher, more money, more people, bigger lineups, and all of this. I think now, we got back to a more local level, a level which is more focused on being connected. And I really hope that is something that we will have or take into the future as well after the pandemic. And I mean, when I think about or look what we did in United We Stream, this was a massive collective effort. Like a lot of people, clubs, artists, activists working together, people who actually wouldn't speak a word together before because they were just competitive. They teamed up and did something together in order to save something and to work actually for the cause together. We all got in this, and yeah, I really hope that we are taking this dynamic beyond the pandemic.
I think for me there's something that's going to be very crucial to address in club spaces and beyond when we come out of the pandemic, which is mental health and the impact that this is having on people, already had on people, even when the measures kind of decreased a little bit over the summer. And I was kind of meeting up with people again. I was noticing, you know, some of my kind of being in group social skills spaces, you know, had kind of diminished a little bit. And I was noticing that for other people too, there was some things to work through. And I really hope that when club spaces open up again, there'll be more awareness of that, especially given that as a city, Berlin has been known as a place where people have used hedonism as a way to self-medicate and maybe bypass kind of dealing with more challenging emotions. I think that's only going to be more crucial, that as you know, producers and curators and venue managers, that we really are aware of how we build in harm reduction, build in resources for mental health and support so that we can normalize that. I can't remember who said it, but something that's really stuck with me about how you kind of get new culture or create new culture is you have to meet people where they work, they pray, or they play. And that those are the kind of spaces where you can actually get change. And so I really hope that we can, dream a lot bigger in club spaces and really tend to the kind of collective needs that we already had, but are much more glaringly obvious now, given the pandemic.
So on that note about mental health, we noticed that there was a huge spike of overdose cases during the pandemic. How would you recommend dealing with drug abuse, or how do you think that plays out in events, and what's your approach towards it?
I think that we have to get way more versed in harm reduction and how we can kind of move away from either kind of ignoring chaotic drug use or kind of saying, well, either abstinence, or we ignore it and we just think it's all recreation and fun. I think we have to implement harm reduction policies and normalize people also being more honest about how they're using substances, on a community and friend level as well, especially if we start noticing that someone maybe is using in a problematic way or in a chaotic way, trying to build a capacity where we can say, hey, just let me know when you're using, and trying not to shame people, but work with them to kind of use in safer ways, even if that means instead of sharing notes with people, if they are snorting certain substances, using straws, or, doing small things that are going to reduce transmission. I think on a practical level, I think that club producers and event producers should really try and pair with certain organizations that exist that have information about harm reduction services and drug testing, because a lot of the reasons overdoses are happening is because of fentanyl, which is a pharmaceutical product that is a synthetic derivative of heroin, but it's much, much, much stronger. And this is being contaminated or cross-cut with other drugs. And so a lot of people are overdosing because they're not aware that it's contained in that. And it's a big problem that's mainly particularly pronounced in the United States right now, but also is impacting the European context as well. So I think, we have to normalize drug testing and much more available information about harm reduction, and not just pretend that it's not happening, or that by having this information we're encouraging it, because people are doing it anyway. So it's whether or not we're going to try and save lives, or if we're just going to move away from it because we're scared that that this is going to make things more complicated, when actually I think this is information that we just need as a public health issue. Yeah.
I attended parties that had a strict policy on forbidding a certain type of substance, in that case, GHB. Given what you just said, how do you feel about not asking people to leave on account of using a certain substance? Or how do you all think about dealing with that?
I have a lot of thoughts about this. I mean, this discourse on GHB, it's a huge one here in Berlin, I think, not just here in Berlin. And on many intersections. So I got to this topic from the part of sexual violence, mainly towards women, but in general, happening under the usage of GHB, and as well the forbidding of this substance. And I think it's, from my side, and I'm really curious what you think about it, I think it's really dangerous to kind of do this, because prohibiting, we all know where this is leading to. It's not leading to, oh, we don't use this. It's more like, okay, how can we either smuggle it into, or on the other hand, using it outside and then go back in again, or if we get, I don't know, eliminated from the club, the people who throw you out, how can they know in what kind of situation you are when you are consuming GHB? You are not 100% there, and it's really, you know, like, you have to be on point to be self-aware, and so you can take it and then you can be thrown out, and suddenly you are not there anymore in your brain, and you're in the middle of the street and you don't know where to go. So I think it's really on, harm reduction, raising awareness on the usage of drugs and how we combine certain drugs and what's the right amount, how we consume it together, and that's what I think about it. And I'm really
100%. 100%. I agree with you. I think prohibiting is, let's be honest, people can just put in a specific pocket or something, and then we'll never know it's inside. And then probably if you are prohibiting the person to come to enter the club with it, that means you're not training anyone on how to deal with this, the usage or the abuse of it, if they are inside and they manage to smuggle it. So what is the level of problem that you're actually creating for yourself? Because then nobody knows how to deal with it. Nobody knows how to deal with a person that might overdose on it. But then your excuse as a club is going to be like, oh yeah, but they shouldn't be allowed in. So it's actually on them. But at the end of the day, still a person is there. You are responsible for that. So I feel much more it's about creating awareness and handling people, or training people on how to deal with any kind of abuse, specifically with G, which is super problematic, rather than saying, oh no, you cannot come in with it.
I think that, thank you for sharing those points, and I definitely resonate with what you're saying. I think I can understand why in certain events there's a desire to not have certain substances. I know that for me personally, especially running queer events, I really like to encourage alcohol-free spaces. But then a conversation we've had in my team doing that has been, okay, well, what do we do if someone maybe has dependency on alcohol? Or like, what's our duty of care if someone wants to be in this space, but they have consumed alcohol? And then I suppose that's the nuanced place of like, you know, maybe there's a difference in terms of what you advertise, saying we want to create a container free from this. But then if someone is using that substance, maybe having a protocol where you check in with them and say, hey, you know, we just want to acknowledge this is the space we're trying to create. Maybe we're not going to throw you out, but can you just, you know, let us know why you want to be here in this space or what you're getting from it, and kind of get to the why a little bit more. Because I think when we have blanket rules and we're not understanding, you know, the reasons why someone might be using a substance, then I think we're missing some key information about how we can better support our community. But yeah, I think that for me personally, there's nothing wrong with trying to create a container without a certain substance, but I also agree that there's a duty of care, and it's good to have a kind of different approaches you'll take if someone maybe does want to be in your space but has taken a certain substance.
So, have any of you encountered or written material about awareness and safety specific for the pandemic that goes beyond hygiene rules, and how was that? If you did.
No, I mean, I feel like, as I said, as of now, I feel like we have a quite good policy for our event specifically, and also just to clear out that one does not apply to all. It's very much case-based, and we kind of just, I don't know, made it slightly better, and then we added on to all the measures that we were trying to reach with the COVID measures, but no.
Yeah, I haven't been writing particular information on it. Yeah, mainly been either playing or like I haven't been in that kind of production space over this last part of the pandemic.
No shame here.
No, I mean, we at Club Commission, we were just guiding people when they had questions and kind of gave them contacts if they need expertise or legal estimation. And it's a very, complex thing from space to space, event to event. The circumstances are so different, and each space actually needs its own concept and measures. And really thumbs up for all the people who did that the whole summer and collected all these expertise, and now they know how to do it and are actually ready when we are getting back into a time when we can do kind of events again. Hopefully soon, but really I have a lot of appreciation for that, because this costs a lot of resources, capacity and time and money, and yeah.
How do you all feel about us being pushed to online experiences that were otherwise either mostly or exclusively IRL?
I mean, I think club culture is a very analog thing, and you cannot just easily transport it into the digital space. And still, I think it's at least something we can do, and something how we can stay connected, present talent, and keep on doing what we are all doing, because the alternative would be we are doing nothing. So that's what I think about the digital way. That's what I thought about United We Stream, that it was at least the best thing we could do in that moment when nothing else was possible. But still, I always hope it's getting back to the point where we can all gather in a space, because that's the unique thing, especially as well about club culture and nightlife, that we can gather in a room, in an exclusive room, and share experiences. But yeah,
I think that something that's been really glaring for me in learning from a lot of disability justice activists is just the very legitimate anger that a lot of disabled folks have for years and years and years, asking to be able to work from home, being told, no, it's not possible to work from home, to be asked to have events streamed, oh no, it's not possible, it's too much money. And now, given that most able-bodied people are in the position where we have to be at home, suddenly everything's changed around, to fit the needs of the dominant group. So I really hope that as we move out of the pandemic, there can still be focus and energy and resource put into kind of still creating more accessibility and having hybrid systems. Like, I know there's been some events where restrictions were lighter, where you had a limited amount of people in the space, but they were still streaming. And I think models like that are really nice in terms of still being able to be accessible for people who can't be in the same place for whatever reason, or are disabled or chronically ill or have children or whatever the thing may be. So I kind of hope that continues and that we can play with different ways to build community that are kind of more inclusive in that capacity. So that's a kind of silver lining, I think, that we can take from this and hopefully build upon.
Oh my God, yes, the hypocrisy. Like telling Muslim women they cannot wear masks when they're in I don't know, shops or malls or public spaces because it's not safe. And now where does that fit? Why everyone has to now? Yeah, that pretty touches me. But I feel like the restrictions don't only limit us, but allow us to think about other alternatives otherwise unimaginable or taken for granted. I think a really good example on that is, for instance, I don't know if you have been keeping up with the Collective Practices project from Akud Matnoy, and they one of them specifically from Lyra Pramuk is an activity called Zusammen zu hören, which is listen together. And it was I participated the last one, and I'm going to participate the next one, and I felt like it was so interesting because so the dynamic is everyone gathers online, they choose a track, everyone listens to everyone's track, but nobody knows whose track is it from, and you cannot say anything if you know the track before. So you listen to it, and then everyone is going to share how did they feel, what did you think about what were the references. I mean, you just share whatever you feel like sharing after listening to the track. And you cannot say, let's say it's Madonna's Like a Virgin, and you know Madonna's Like a Virgin. You cannot say it. And that opens up, you start listening to that song not the way that you always listen to it, but you're much more aware and you are much more free to experience that song. And I felt like this kind of brought back an experience that was very common in my childhood when you had like a teacher or aunt, whoever, saying, okay, this is Auntie Suzanne, we're going to have like a little dynamic here. And we just stopped doing those things. And I felt like Aunt Lyra brought us kind of this activity that made everyone feel so intimate, even though most of us didn't know each other before. And I was wondering, is there some type of event or dynamic that you found particularly interesting that was created under those restrictions?
I feel like in this time, this pandemic time, that everybody was locked out in their houses, and people had this need of reaching out to other people, and then they tried to reach out in the best way that they could, and most of the time was by sharing knowledge. And it was so amazing to see so many different workshops and different panels of people literally just sharing everything that they knew, and in a very indirect way, even fostering community even more. And so I've watched a few workshops, yoga classes that I never thought I was going to join, Zoom yoga classes of people. And it was much more about being in a community, even though I was alone in my room, than just for the yoga classes. So I feel like different types of workshops that were given this past few months were so amazing and so enlightening, and just really show me that people are trying to share the best that they can, and I feel like, for me that was the best, and I really hope they continue because it is amazing.
Yeah, again, I have to say that I experienced this as well, and again, it's about the barriers and how we can participate in everything, and it's really something that resonates with me about inclusion and being barrier-free, that this is actually a massive improvement that all these things are on the line now, and we can just choose on any time what we want to do. And as well, for me as a person, I'm always like very active and I have less time at home, and now I can just choose whenever I want to be part of whatever community. It's really, really great, actually. Yeah.
And somehow it feels like you have access to people that before you wouldn't, because
Exactly.
they are also putting things there. They are reaching out.
Or you wouldn't dare to go to. That's what I had. Like sometimes I would just be shy to be part of a space or a community, and now you could just try. Or my mom, who's like calling me like, oh, I'm in a club in Berlin now, and she's somewhere in the eastern part of Germany, and she has never been to a club. And now there is streaming, and she can just see what's going on, and she can connect, which is so cool.
Yeah, it's really nice. Something that I've been really interested in and continue to be is online grief spaces.
Mm-hmm.
I've been running a few, and I've definitely been going to some. I've also attended a few online funerals this year, and I think this is also something that, I've been surprised at the power of being able to be part of those spaces, which, I would definitely want to be in person for. Like, if I could choose, that's what I'd want. But I think people are finding really creative ways to use, like, somatics and connection and interactive moments with the platforms that exist to still kind of have that connection and leave people feeling like, oh, I'm so glad we could do that, rather than just kind of be left to our own devices. And that's a wish I have actually in the future when clubs open again. I really want grief spaces in clubs. Like, as someone that I was heavily grieving for most of the last 3 years, sort of in a different place now with it, but I'd find myself at festivals sometimes or in a club and just feel like suddenly I needed to cry. And I wanted to still be in the club, I wanted to be with my friends, but it felt like there was no space for that. And this is a really common thing that I think, again, I hope we can address. Even if there is one designated space where you know that if you suddenly need to like have a meltdown and you just need to be away, you can go there and you have permission. Because I think sometimes club spaces, are framed in this way of like, everyone's meant to be happy and celebrating and completely bypassing any emotion that's not like, woohoo! And the reality is that we're multifaceted beings. We have our ups and our downs, as we're all experiencing right now. And I'm pretty sure that when people get back into a club, it's not all going to be 100%, this is amazing. That might be that for a minute. And then people might be like, oh my God, so much has been happening, And it would be nice if there was a space where that was allowed and we could also support people to be in touch with their emotions more, rather than have to like drink more alcohol or take another pill, because that's not meant to be okay to feel. Yeah.
I really wish that as well, honestly. And I feel like once we are allowed back in, it's going to be it's so overwhelming for everybody. Honestly.
Get
ready.
We all need. So maybe the main floor can be one of those rooms, and then the smaller floors can be for you to party, because it's going to be like this general catharsis for all of us. So.
How was your experience writing the policies and guidelines for United We Stream? And what were the challenges that you faced during the streaming? Because, I mean, it's very common especially for artists that are invited to do a live in more known or mainstream platforms, and they get a lot of trolling because, I don't know, maybe it's a platform that mainly features techno or house artists, and when you deviate from those genres, it's like, this is trash or whatever, so you get all this nonsense comments. Have you dealt with that? How is that?
Oh, wow. Yeah, we have dealt with so many things. I mean, this whole project started on a Friday, March the 13th, and 5 days later we went online with the first stream, and within these days we mobilized over 100 people working in club culture somewhere, being active in it. And we got together, so this was the first huge awareness project. How can you bring 100 different human beings together who are super motivated to put their skills in and to save this thing and to create an idea together and then walk towards one thing. So this was the first thing, and we managed this pretty well. Everybody was just super hyper, and instead of being super frustrated and depressed, okay, we have no work to do now from one day to the other, we just pushed totally ourselves into this. So with this hyper energy, we started into it. And then during stream 1, 2, 3, we realized, okay, this is so complex again. It's, we have whole Berlin clubs, which are over 300, 400 spaces, who actually are potential participators. Then we have these thousands of artists who we want to be part of it. And so many interests. And then what do we do? Because we actually have now here the chance to create a whole new platform and to reshape everything. So we want to be as diverse as we can be, but it's not that easy because, of course, you can have your values and you see, yeah, we minimum want to have a parity in the lineup each evening. So then you have clubs who say, okay, easy, that's what we do anyways. We are very aware of our booking. And then you go in this very male-dominated places who never thought about this, but still you have your community guidelines, which were then not written down yet, because we all just thought, okay, we have the same values. And then we realized, okay, we need certain rules that we have to apply on each partner we are working with. And before that, we have to actually realize what we can agree on. And even within our team, it was super difficult. So I would say this whole, we call it awareness manifesto in the end, was is a huge process of reflection, and it's still changing. And in the end, we discussed with each club, with each collective, about the responsibility they have, and we have, what we are screening, and screening all over Europe in the end, and in the world. And it was a huge effort of talking, having conversations. And after a few weeks, it was kind of common. So people knew if they want to participate in United We Stream, they have to follow certain rules, they have to follow certain guidelines, and they have to be aware in what they are actually sending out as a program. And it really worked. And for me, United We Stream showed that you can have really a huge platform and reach, and without just having massive lineups and just men and cis people, white people being represented. Because, the opposite worked, and that makes me really happy, actually, in the end. But it's a massive community effort, and it's really exhausting as well, because, it's never taken for granted, I would say.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Were there any clubs that after the manifesto was out said, no, don't want to work with you under those specific set of rules or policies that you written? This does not agree with what we think, therefore we don't want to be part of this project? Don't have to name names.
Exposing.
I would never name names.
Give me the list after.
I would never name names, but I wouldn't say that in the end someone rejected to it, but people started to discuss. There were, of course, certain examples who said, okay, what kind of dictatorship is this? this is intimidating that we tell people how to curate a program, because that's their expertise they have for so long. So, and we understood this. I mean, this, and that's what we as well always went in the dialogue with, that this is our manifesto, that's a collective thing, and we think this works and this matches our responsibility we all have in the club culture. And at the same time, we acknowledge that we all have a different level of awareness in this, and that's totally fine. That's because we are in this together. And talking like this, we could actually reach out to everyone in the end, and some were easier and some not, but I think that's part of the process, and we really have to realize this, that as we sit here in our bubble, we are like saying all these intellectual and very smart things, but this is not, I think, common for the whole club culture in Berlin or globally. It's very, very, very diverse, and yeah.
So let's just heat up the tea just a little bit more. What were the points that were mainly contested in the guidelines that were in the manifesto? What made it a dictatorship for some people?
That we are referring to quotes, for example, and we didn't say you have to have a quote, but we said, okay, if you want to be part of it, we really recommend you to have this. If not, if you're not matching this, and we really were very specific. In the beginning times, we had like 5 hours of streaming each evening, so which is per se an uneven number. So you cannot just say, okay, to female identified and to whatever or whatever. I'm just talking like practical language now. So we really try to make up examples. Everyone can read it online in German and English. And then to try to explain why this is important and what's actually the power behind it. And if you are not matching this, you have to get back to us and go in dialogue with us, and we have to discuss this. And then we offered as well as one rule, we recommend you artists, we recommend you how we can work on this together. And there was one thing people, we were as well talking about specific language in lyrics, because of course, you cannot think that the lyrics that are fine for us here, I mean, it's totally different in Bavaria, or it's totally different on the other side of the globe, what is for them okay or not. So we realized, okay, we have to talk about lyrics as well, and that some lyrics are not okay, and that it's to their responsibility on what they are sending, and if not, we had the right to interrupt a stream. So this happened once and then never again, because we made it clear. And sometimes I realized, okay, they are just not aware of, okay, for example, as well, visuals. There was one stream who showed like very specific woman shapes and visuals, but were just not okay. But in the end, we could like talk to them, and they are like, oh wow, yeah, that's just not true. Okay, thank you for this. We learned something. So this was what happened very, very often, that people just didn't think about things, and it became so clear in the streaming because it was so in front of you. Yeah.
So once you dealt with a problematic situation, either on site or online, how do you deal with the aftermath? How is the follow-up? How do you recommend, or how are your practices on following up on a bad situation that happened?
I've recently been involved in an accountability process online, so yeah, I can speak to this. I think it's been really useful for me to like take lots of time with it, as much as I had this kind of like rushy energy of, oh, I need to say something now, and you know, I drafted this statement maybe 4 or 5 times over the last month before putting it out, and it really helped to kind of just actually say, no, you don't have to operate on Instagram time. You can take the amount of time you need to really feel aligned with this. I also reached out to people I respect, asked them to kind of read over my statement, was in dialogue with them. Had some of those same people still check in with me now that the statement is out and there are next steps kind of taking place. Yeah, and just for me, it's just really useful to have second opinions from people that I respect, because I notice that when I'm in the midst of a kind of emotional situation, it's not that I can't trust myself, but there can be so many other things that are brought up. It can be difficult to sometimes see clearly when also actions need to be taken. And yeah, so I really appreciate being able to rely on community to kind of keep me tethered to my integrity. And yeah, just been trying to rest a lot and not feel the need to, I guess, turn it into a big drama spiral, drama tornado. Because I notice that happens a lot online, maybe because it can take a lot of energy to even put something out and to even say, hey, I noticed this and I didn't think this was all right. And I think the tendency, because we live in such a punitive society and we have prisons and we have, you know, justice systems which say this person's guilty and this person's innocent, and we're not taught to have very much nuance. I think it can be quite easy to get really amped up and have a whole group of people be like, you're bad, let's shame this person, and for the, you know, person in accountability to kind of get riled up with that energy and go on a spiral. But so it's been important for me since putting out this statement to just kind of, yeah, come back into myself and take a breath and just, yeah, go for walks and try and disengage, because my intention was to put that out there, and I'm personally not particularly interested in, in kind of doing much more unless there's something I really need to engage with, because my desire has kind of been met just to have named it for now. So yeah, that's how I've approached it.
I never have to deal it online, so I can only talk about real life experiences. Most of the time, if something happens on venue there, obviously you just take people apart, just give them a little time to cool off, because then you can talk about it. As you were saying, I really feel like people, when they are in the middle of whatever's happening, they cannot, and I speak for myself as well, I cannot understand what it is, just my reaction, and what is that is really happening, what is that what really hurt me or really triggered me into something. I talk to both people, I understand what's happening, and to the person that was the abused or the harassed, I always ask, if you were in my position, if you had the power, what do you think I should do? Let's talk about it, because at the end of the day, you should also feel comfortable, and I want to hear what is your opinion. And most of the time, people really stop and they really think, and then they can talk to you, and they are very reasonable, even if they were like, it was something very bad, if they were heavily harassed or something. It's not always, sometimes people are like, oh yeah, no, it's fine, let the person in. But you know, if someone harassed once, most likely they will do it again. So depending on the level of it, depending on how bad it was, I just take the person out, I talk to them, I explain to them what it is happening, why they're being taken out, why is that whatever that they did somehow hurt all the policies that we have as an event or as a club or festival, whatever. Because I feel like you have to make sure everyone understands what happened and why those things are, so it does not happen again. And then I just take them out. I've been shouted at, I've been screamed at, I've been harassed in my own events a few times. And again, I have a very good security team. So for me, it's kind of easy to deal with them. They kind of understand. And also for them, like, our policies are very clear. Yeah, and then we just take them out or not. Depends very much on how the person
Sorry,
feels.
maybe I wasn't very clear. It's, I mean more after the event happened, after you took all the measures, like after the event has passed. And I can also throw in a follow-up question, which is, where do you draw the line between I'm asking this person to leave this event and this person is no longer welcome in any of the events that this organization, collective, whatever, is entity is organizing.
Just to continue, the only time that I never had to do with that, it never escalated that much. The only time it happened was one of my personal events, and then I had to break relations with the venue itself because the venue person harassed one of my artists while they were playing, and that was problematic. And then that was a situation that it went on for a few months, which was stressful. Therefore, I don't even consider doing anything with them anymore. But with the other events that I did, it never escalated that much. People were there, we sorted everything out, and then it was completely fine. What's the second question again?
The question is, where do you feel like, where is the line between this person shouldn't be here now and is going to be asked to leave, to this person is no longer welcome in this event ever? That's a tough call to make.
That's a very interesting question. I think for me, yeah, most of the experiences I made, there haven't been really clear consequences, and sometimes I wish there was the clear consequence that a people can not enter a space again. But I think it really goes along with how much this person wants to or is involving themselves in solving the situation in the aftermath, like taking responsibility and being accountable and reflecting. I mean, it's always a temporary situation and moment, and no person is the same, exactly the same all his lifetime. So there's definitely, for me, the chance of process evolving and change. So yeah, for me it would be this. But as you are part of community justice movement, it would be very interesting to hear from you.
This is something I'm thinking about a lot at the moment, and I don't have clear answers for it, just more and more questions. But it's really challenging because from the perspective of an event, often there's not enough resource, there's not enough people anyway, everything's kind of happening, it's just possible to kind of make it happen is often the feeling I've had anyway. And so it's questionable as to how much responsibility, how much aftercare, how much kind of conflict resolution a production team or a venue or a club can do given the current economic constraints that we have, right? But more broadly, when I think with my abolition hat on, when I think with my activist hat on, I do think we need better mechanisms as communities to deal with harm that is not just individualized in the owner of a club or the production team. Because, yeah, even if we do end up banning someone for life, what's that person going to do? They're just going to go to another club or another space and do harm somewhere else. It's not that we can ostracize people to somewhere where they no longer do harm. So I think we need to develop better mechanisms to really tend to supporting people to reflect and to deal with their consequences, and maybe having more nuanced approaches, right, where we say, okay, you're no longer going to be welcome at this event series unless you engage with X, Y, Z. Like, say this happened to be a cis male person, this might be going on a kind of, anti-patriarchy, anti-sexism, anti-violence kind of training, or something of this nature, or kind of anti-harassment course. But I would ideally, want that to be in connection and support with other men in their community who could also hold that, right? Who could be in dialogue, who could be supportive of that process. Because I think when people engage in harm and then they feel ostracized or shamed, there's already a lot of isolation happening. And I think when that feeling is there, people can go both ways. I think it can be very easy for people to tip further into a space where they just feel like, it's me against the world kind of thing. And I think it's really important in a transformative justice perspective to have consequences for harm, but also to create pathways back into community. And I think those pathways back have to happen in connection with the community holding that process. So I think there's a lot of work we need to do in kind of creating different mechanisms, because right now I don't think we have the capacity to kind of deal with that in totality, but we need different solutions. So I'm interested in how we implement this.
I have just one thing, because what I see...
Sorry, we're running out of time, so please, if you can make it short.
Yeah, I can ask you this question later on as well. It's not that important.
Okay, I'm going to die of curiosity. So as we're running out of time, I would like to ask if we have any questions from the audience.
We do. We also got, you got lots of hearts and comments, that it's a great conversation and so on. So just sharing this love. And we have 3 questions. One is, this was right at the beginning when you started. Which clubs would you recommend as a safer place? The only place that comes to mind is Trauma Bar. This is the question. It's very Berlin related, I think.
That's so Berlin.
I second Trauma Bar. I think they're great. I also think Menschmeier have a fairly robust awareness process. So I'd also advocate for them as like people that are really learning and growing and have something in place. And I personally also love Beate Ufer, but I don't know if they have a set policy, but I know I just feel very comfortable. They do now?
Yeah,
okay,
and
cool.
they are really in a huge process as well.
Okay, thank you. And the next question is by the same person. What do you think should be said if you want to complain to a bartender or bouncer who claim they don't have the capacity or can't do anything for you because you don't remember who did the harm to you?
Sorry, to a person or about a person?
I think the way I understand it is you complain to a bartender or bouncer, but then you don't find or you don't have the person who did the harm, but you just want to complain about a general like unsafe situation.
Yeah, I feel that the problem is, as we were talking before, the way the policies are written and they are spread out through the whole team is not feasible. The team does not know where or whom to talk to. So it's not, even though you have awareness team, then the producer knows about it, maybe the person at the door knows about it, and then that's it. People at the bar, they don't know about it, the bouncers don't know about it. So it's actually a problem much bigger than just that one person not knowing who they should guide you to. It's about the whole structure not being thought of and how to actually make the awareness, the whole awareness policy be part of the environment. That's the goal. I think that's the problem that we have.
I think we need a systematic complaint management in each club, actually, and clubs like Menschmeier, for example, they have this and they are working on this and overthink this all the time, and they are in the middle of the process, but at least they have a systematic way of what do we do when we get a complaint, on which position, how communicate with each other, and how it's documented. Because from club commission side, I can say we have a lack of data, and we need this data, and actually we need all of the clubs to document the cases so we can see a systematic and then apply measures. So I would recommend this person to, force the person to document it and report it to the club system, whatever this might be, but write it down.
And that might be going to the venue manager. So if the bartender's like, I'm busy, I don't know, be like, well, who's the venue manager? Who's on production right now, duty? And then go and speak to that person.
And some institutions and clubs have emails as well. So I would look out for this. And a lot of clubs are aware that they have complaints on their Facebook pages. So you can reach out there as well.
And just another thing, I feel like we should stop treating awareness team as just the 3 or 4 people that have the policies. We, as a producer of the event, we are all awareness teams, from the person greeting you at the door to the person at the bar, to the person taking care of the bathroom or whoever. We are all part of the awareness team. So we cannot be, oh yeah, talk to them. It's us as a group. We should be all part of this, you know?
I am very on board in the accountability boat. This aggression cannot stop. This abuse cannot stop in you just because you can't remember who it was or if that person disappeared. Throw it in the fan, because someone needs to be held responsible, and if they refuse, it's just gonna escalate.
Thank you. Also, the person is under the name Momokor says, thank you for answering. You guys are amazing. Love you. And we have one more question that came in also a while ago when you were talking about harm reduction. By Peter Kern. Actually, question about harm reduction. Was some of this related to legal restrictions on testing in Germany, or is there any effort to improve that?
I will actually defer to one of you in case you know more, because I'm learning about the legislation in Germany. I believe that there are much wider permissions than in the UK context, where festivals in the UK, only a few have just been able to introduce drug testing, whereas I know that Fusion and other festivals have actually had that going for a lot longer. I have spoken to some people in clubs who say that they have difficulty implementing it because of restrictions and legal issues there.
Yeah.
Got you, yeah, so you should speak to this more, because I'm not
No,
so...
I don't want to interrupt you.
Okay.
I just want to support you that, yeah, it's still not legalized, yeah.
Thanks. But yeah, so I think there needs to be maybe more of a... I know I want to research on what those barriers are and how we can actually, you know, bend or break those rules or reform those in order to actually, yeah, have the information in the place where people need it, in the club space, to actually have better access to public health information.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for everyone who's listening. Thank you, Andrea, again, for inviting me. This was a great conversation. I could go on for at least another hour, and I had to cut the questions already. I mean, this is a hot topic. And thank you so much. I learned a lot in this conversation. I hope that the people who viewed us can also take those points and reflect upon them, so we can build a better community and that's more supportive, so we can just be better at clubbing and just be better at supporting each other.
Thank you. It was awesome.
Thanks.
And
Yeah,
you
so
too.
Thank you to everybody.
There will also be Folly Ghost will also play a DJ set, because we're in a club and we can now listen to some music. So please stay on.
Stay on.
Stay
It's going
on.
to be a lighter set now. I've been kind of tired. I know it's a lot. It's a pandemic. Everyone has coronavirus. So this is going to be a lighter set from what I'm used to playing. So hang on with me.
And we'll take like 2-3 minutes to for the changeover. So we take a little break, but stay on, please. Thank you.
God damn you. God damn me. God damn us. God damn we. Damn. God damn you. God damn me. God damn us. God damn we. Damn. God damn you. God damn me. God damn us. God damn we. Damn. God damn you. God damn me. God damn us. God damn we. Damn.
Primitive is my anthem. It's your primitive
sacanagem. Como eu, o negão do WhatsApp. Como eu, você tá de sacanagem. Como eu, o negão do WhatsApp. Como eu, taca, tcheca, tcheca, taca, taca, tcheca, tcheca. Como eu, taca, tcheca, tcheca, taca, taca, xereca na pica da tua. Taca, tcheca, tcheca, taca, taca, tcheca, tcheca. Taca, tcheca, tcheca, taca, taca, xereca na pica da tua. Esse é o momento pra mulher ficar safada. Esse é o momento pra mulher ficar oriçada. Hoje a capa que pode chamar e você vem rebolando safada. Taca, tcheca, tcheca, taca, taca, xereca na pica da pai. Taca, tcheca, tcheca, taca, taca, tcheca, tcheca. Taca, tcheca, tcheca, taca, taca, xereca na pica da pai. Taca, tcheca, tcheca, taca, taca, tcheca, tcheca. Taca, tcheca, tcheca, taca, taca, xereca na pica da pai.
my lovely little lumps. My hump. You love drunk.